Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I will be covering how to use every gacha character properly. Now anyway, when I say gacha characters, I include Madoka, Dio Over Heaven, Sid, Guts, Kurami, Frieren, and Asta. One last thing before I get started, this video is going to have to be split into two different parts due to how long it's taking me, mostly because of reasons I'm not going to get into. But anyway, the second part will be out in the near future, probably a little bit after this next update comes out. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. The first character I'm going to be covering is Madoka, which I will say right off the bat is more of an assist than anything, but if it's the only character you got, then we're going to go ahead and explain how you should be using this character properly. Your first move can be used on smaller groups of enemies. It has some alright AoE and does enough damage that it has the potential to wipe out a whole group of enemies in one go. Your second move is one that you're going to be using an awful lot because it does a lot of damage and it goes very far. Its hitbox is basically a straight line, so make sure you go ahead and line yourself up with the dungeon enemies before you fire it off. Your third move you'll probably be abusing just as much as your second move, probably because it is the only move on your entire moveset that gives you speed, so that's your only source of mobility whatsoever. In my opinion, you should focus on using your third move to reset your second move and get mobility instead of doing damage with it. Your fourth move has AoE all around you, and it does quite a bit of damage, so I would suggest using it in spots like here, where you're completely surrounded by enemy NPCs to get the most out of that fourth move. Now, in my opinion, you should not be using your fifth move in dungeons. It's way too slow and it holds you back way too much. So it's definitely a raids only move. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to raid tips for using Madoka. First up, let's go ahead and go over the combos you should be using at the start of each raid. So this first one is if you do not have the Garo pet. If you do not have the Garo pet, you want to start out each raid by using 1, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 twos, then a 1. And here is that combo being used. Now, for those of you who do have the Garo pet, you want to use 1, 4, 5, then 3, then 3 twos, then a 1, and then to end it off, use a 2. And now here is that combo being put to use. Now, the reason we used a 3 instead of a 1-2 after the 5 is because we wanted our Garo pet to reset our cooldown and take about 6 seconds off of that third cooldown so we can use it quicker. For people with the Garo pet, my personal advice is to try to time your third move specifically with the Garo pet reset, because that way then you can spam it more. Now, my personal advice for anyone is to simply prioritize your second and third moves over your first. Next up, we're going over Dio Over Heaven, personally one of my favorite gacha characters in this game. You want to use Dio's first move on the smaller groups of enemies ahead of you. It has quite a lot of range and has a generous amount of damage for a first move. You always want to use your second move whenever you're surrounded by enemy NPCs, since its AoE will hit all around you. Just like Madoka, you want to abuse the third move since it is the only ability that will give you speed. Unlike Madoka though, it also resets your first move on top of the second move. Lastly, Dio Over Heaven's fourth move is really quick and does a lot of damage, so only use this on bosses. Do not use this on normal mobs, it's not worth it. Now, this is the following combo that you should do without the Garo pet using Dio Over Heaven at the beginning of every raid. 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 twos, and then a 1. For reference, this is the combo being used in the character testing area. Now, the combo you want to do with the Garo pet is 5, 4, 3, 4 twos, and then a 1. And this is the combo being used. Basically, the Garo pet will activate upon using the third move, and that will take 6 seconds off your third and fourth move, allowing you to spam your 1 and 2 even more. Now, I will say this, Dio over Heaven is not really a dungeons character, use him more for raids than anything. However, if you do have to use him for dungeons, constantly use the third move to get extra speed. When you do use your third move, only use your second move. It is much better to spam the second move than the first move, you'll do much more damage. The next character we're going to be going over is Kurami. Her first move has a lot of range, hits directly ahead of you, and might even do 50% more damage. I suggest using the first move on smaller groups in dungeons, because the 50% chance to do 50% more damage will sometimes result in killing entire groups of enemies with that one attack. However, if you do get unlucky and you don't get the 50% damage buff on the first move, you can always just simply use the second move, and that should clean up whatever the first move didn't finish off. The third move should be used whenever enemies in the dungeon are scattered and you can't hit everything using your other moves. Lastly, her fourth move should only be used on groups of enemies such as this one, where all of my attacks clearly cannot hit every enemy. Now, I couldn't think of a combo to use with Kurami in raids, however I will say this, make sure to use your third and second move before spamming your first or using your fourth and fifth. Also, make sure all of your first 4 moves are on cooldown before using the 5th move, so that way you can make the most out of the time reset that the 5th move gives. Now, if you do have the Garo pet, make sure to time your Garo pet reset with the 3rd and 2nd move. Always use the 3rd move first, because the 3rd move has a tiny bit of a delay when doing damage, so that way hopefully you can get off both your 3rd and 2nd and have them both get reset. Anyway, those are all the characters I'll be covering in this part. I'll be covering the rest of them in the next part. I yet again apologize for having to split this up into 2 different parts. I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and join the Discord below. Have a great day. My name is AvertexFire. AvertexFire. AvertexFire.